The Hog Sty is brought to you by TicketClub.com, your one-stop shop for live events nationwide. Whether you're looking for game, theater, or live performance tickets, don't sweat it. TicketClub.com has you covered. So make sure you're going there for all your live entertainment needs, and make sure you're clicking over to them from the banner at the top of thehogsty.com.
Test, test, test.
Bing bong, bing bong. Okay.
Bing bong. All right. Then here we go. In 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Hog Sty, your number one source for all things Redskins and the NFL, coming at you fast and brought to you by our friends at TicketClub.com. My name's Sean Conti. I'm joined by Alex Zeese, Steve Thomas, and Jamal Forrest. We're just 10 days away from the preseason kickoff against the Browns, and we've been busy little bees. Alex has been down at training camp to get the hottest scoop on all the happenings down in Richmond. Jamal will also be headed there next week. But before we get to that, how you guys doing, my friends? Did you have good weekends? I know Jamal is currently battling a fly in our recording studio as we speak.
I'm going through it right now. I ain't gonna lie to you. This little fly is getting on my goddamn nerves. You might hear it in the mic, too. That's the crazy thing.
Well, flies are annoying, but at least it's not like a mosquito or something that'll, really be a pain.
Yeah. And the good thing, I will personally, I ain't gonna lie to you. I'd rather be a mosquito because mosquitoes are slower.
That's true.
I can swat it, and that thing, it'll die. But a fly moves a little bit too quick for my liking, and when you kill it,
it comes back.
Yeah.
Jamal's gonna totally lose his train of thought on this show.
He's gonna hit his mic. That's how it's gonna end.
You know what? I'm gonna leave it alone.
Either that or he's gonna slap his laptop and ruin his computer.
I'm a professional. I'll leave it alone. But you guys know, if you guys had dealt with a fly that's very annoying, you know what I'm going through right now.
Yeah. Yeah, we've all been
They
there.
always come at the worst times,
Bugs are
Yeah,
always
like
annoying.
Right before you start recording.
Yeah.
No, I had a long Hog Sty filled weekend.
Yeah, you did.
whether that's good or
Behind the
good or
scenes
bad.
stuff.
Yeah, tons of behind-the-scenes stuff. We've got some exciting stuff coming up, which we'll tell you about later, by the way. And so that took up a lot of my time. Produced Alex's training camp, audio we got.
Right.
Wrote a column for this week coming up that I'm really super excited about. So it was a Hog Sty-filled weekend for me.
And obviously a Hog Sty-filled weekend for me for what I did all weekend. Yes.
Oh, I heard what you went through on the way down.
Yeah.
Too. That's,
Well, we'll start with that story.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah.
Tell the people, Alex, what
jump into
happened
it.
on your way from D.C. down to sunny Richmond?
Well, Steve, I woke up.
Because I got a million texts from you about this.
I was aggravated. I woke up at around 5:30 in the morning. Got ready, threw all my stuff in the car. I showered, all that good stuff that you want to do before you head to training camp. Got on the road around 6:30. I was going to take my normal route, which is to take 301 back road. It's usually less traffic, better, more accurate amount of time to get down there. 95 can always start backing up, and you never know what's going to happen on 95. And that road has treated me very well on my trips to training camp the last 4 years that we've been doing this. But this time it did not treat me well. I stopped off, got a coffee at a Wawa. Had to explain to Steve what a Wawa was, by the way, folks.
Never heard of it. I live in Texas.
Yeah.
What can I say?
They got the best French vanilla cappuccino.
Yes. Well, I just got a
do I
plain
drink
old
coffee?
coffee and a little breakfast sandwich on a pretzel roll. Delicious. Got back on the road. Go another 10 miles down 301. Now, if you don't
Sounds like
know,
you're making good progress.
Yeah. I was about 40 some odd miles down the road. And if you don't know 301, it's a road that kind of goes down through Waldorf and these southeast Maryland towns. Beautiful area to drive through.
My former residential headquarters was off 301.
Right. Steve knows it very well. He was the one who actually turned me on to this trip, or this back road idea. You go over a bridge into Virginia, and you're just like going through small country towns in Virginia. The catch is you're on a delta, or not a delta, a peninsula, more or less, for a good chunk of it. And when a car overturns on the road and crashes and the entire road has to be closed off by the police, there is no go-around at that point because you're just there's one road. And so that's what happened to me right before hitting the bridge into Virginia. Somebody got in an accident. The police literally had the road blocked off at a place where you could U-turn, and that was that.
That's such a pretty rude thing for the person to do, getting in an accident and
right, ruins my day.
It'd be a major inconvenience.
Yeah.
I get
Yeah.
it. I hate it.
So I had to then backtrack about 40 miles to 495. And, now it's gone from 6:30 to 7:30 when I hit the accident. By the time I get to 95 and 495, it's 8:39 because traffic starts picking up. Get on 95, and my ETA, when I first got on 95, said 10:30. So, I'm like, okay, I'll miss part of camp, but I'll get there for the second half. As I'm going, 10:30 suddenly says 10:35, then 10:40, then 10:45, then 10:50. Before you know it, it says, hey, here's a faster route. Go and take Route 1. Well, everyone suddenly sees that on their GPS at the same time. Everyone gets on Route 1, right? That faster route, when I get on it, says 11:30. I'm like, well, great. This is just perfect. By the time I get to Richmond, it's noon. I spent 5.5 hours in the car. Camp's over at that point.
Now, let me tell from my perspective
Yeah.
what happened from my perspective on this, which is, now I'll just say that I have kids, and so, I keep the phone near the bed and everything.
Right. I texted you and said, this is a shit
I
show.
got my first text, at like 6:30 or something my time, 6 o'clock, whatever time.
Yeah.
Thinking, okay, there's a problem because nobody's going to be texting me at 6 o'clock in the morning unless there's a problem, and it's Alex. And I got regular, every 30 minute or so updates either via text or.
Well,
phone
you
call
and I went back and forth a couple times. Yeah. It was because you were trying to hope. You were hoping that I could maybe still make it, and should we call the team and tell them why I'm not there? And
I was worried about you getting credentialed if they had abandoned the.
And by the way, they did abandon the credential booth, but that didn't surprise me really.
That was why I was thinking about calling them.
Yeah, but you know what? By noon, it didn't matter. When I showed up at camp, they're like, "Yeah, we don't have the credentials at this point. Come back when you come back for the walkthroughs. We'll get you them."
So the bottom line here is curse Maryland/Virginia traffic because that caused you to miss.
Well,
Saturday
let's focus
practice.
this in on Maryland and Virginia drivers. Y'all can't drive, none of you, and it's one road. How do you mess up one road? There's no one turning. You're just going straight on a highway.
We're here for you, Alex. We're here for you.
I think it's safe to say that
this is your platform.
I've lived in more states than all of you combined.
Sure.
And every state I've ever lived in, you know what the people think?
They have
That
the worst
their
drivers.
drivers are terrible.
The worst
Yeah,
drivers.
exactly.
Of course.
Yeah, but I will say Alex has a point. I believe the Maryland, D.C., Virginia area is one of the highest for accidents.
It's
And
traffic hell for sure.
in fact, if you live in Maryland, your insurance is automatically higher. Did you know that?
Makes complete sense considering my insurance rates now in Colorado are way lower. So makes
Yes,
sense.
your insurance
Yeah, it makes
rates
sense.
actually
I
go
mean,
up
I
in
don't
Maryland
know.
versus anywhere else.
Well, do you think let's get away from traffic?
Okay, all right.
And
So
more on to football.
obviously, I didn't get to watch that practice Saturday like I wanted. I did run into one of our old co-hosts, Robbie. He was down there, so I got the skinny from him about what happened. We caught up. Talked about the families, the kids, and his kids. I don't have kids.
Well, yeah,
but-
kid singular. Yeah,
Kid,
he has one
yes.
kid. Yeah.
But, we chatted about that, but then I was like, all right, so give me the skinny about what happened in practice. He said that Saturday, the defense was absolutely crushing the offense, especially the lines. And, you guys remember, Robbie, that's all he ever watches is lines. So,
Right.
And he said Haskins had a bad day or an off day. He was missing a lot of throws.
Been a lot of articles.
Yeah,
about that.
lot of. I mean, now because I was at camp, I wasn't just sitting there reading stuff. So you guys might have actually have to fill me in on what other people were saying. But
Sure.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like was the case. Is a lot of people observed that Haskins had struggles on Saturday. I did go back for the walkthrough, or unless you guys want me to bore you with my lunch and stuff like that.
No, not really.
No.
Stick to football.
Well, I'll just say, if you do go to camp, go to ZZQ. It's amazing. That barbecue joint, about a half mile from camp. But went back for walkthroughs. Walkthroughs, you don't really learn a whole lot from walkthroughs, but I did get some observations out on our Twitter. A couple key ones. Christian was playing left tackle, switching with the guy we just signed, Robinson.
Corey Robinson.
Yeah. So they were switching back and forth with the number ones playing left tackle.
That's frightening.
Yeah. So,
we'll have to talk about
Flowers, he did get a few reps there, but he was mostly playing inside, from what I saw. And he was switching with Wes Martin from time to time.
Okay.
The thing that I thought was more interesting, though, the ones, and, I can tell it's the ones. Jordan Reed's there, all the starting defensive guys that we want to watch this year are there. It's Colt and Case Keenum are the quarterbacks. Jay isn't with the ones. Jay is with the twos and Haskins for the walkthroughs.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Dynamic. Okay.
Yeah, so Jay was working with the rookie there versus, spending his time with the guys who we assume are probably at least going to start the year.
Yeah, and this kind of makes sense. I mean, if you think about it, this is kind of jiving with everything we assumed would be the configuration come.
And with the
can
big
we stop
picture
right
stuff.
here?
Yeah.
Because I think this is kind of important, because there's the start Dwayne Haskins from day one contingent out there, which is the theory that let's just throw the quarterback to the wolves. The more experience, the better. I just can't think that that's anything but stupid. Really, I mean, I don't know what the rush is. Forget the fact that Jay's kind of lame duck here.
Right.
What's ultimately best for the team? It seems to me that there is no rush with Dwayne Haskins.
Right,
No rush
especially
whatsoever.
if you're, switching back and forth at left tackle between a guy who's hurt and a guy who's a 7th-round pick that you just signed off the street.
Even if Trent was out there, I
Right.
just don't see the point in rushing this guy out there unless he truly is the best quarterback. I mean, people need to take the long view on this. The long view, to me, I'm no quarterback expert. Long view to me is you let the guy sit. Let the guy get acclimated, work him in when you can, but there is just no need to throw him to the wolves. I mean, we've seen that movie before, and it just never goes well.
What movie are we throwing people to the wolves? Is that The Gray? I think that's The Gray.
Yeah, I guess that would be one, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think this makes sense. What are we all expecting? I mean, should we take a poll? Who are we expecting to see? Keenum? Keenum starts at one?
I'm after what I saw this weekend, I would probably start with Keenum. Haskins would be, plan B right now.
Yeah. And look, to fill you in, Alex, because you haven't been reading a lot of the articles, I mean, there's been a lot of nice things said about Haskins. I've read a lot of, look, he moves around well, he's aware, there's a lot of good things said, but it comes with the dose of, realism as well, and the fact that he misses multiple passes in a row, and he's doing all the normal things that someone who's just getting acclimated to a new NFL offense is going to do. So, I mean, it makes total sense, but yeah, I mean, he's struggled at times. That seems to be the consensus coming out of camp from the talking.
I mean, Jamal, you're the one that wrote the big film study, did the big film study on Dwayne Haskins. Tell us what we're missing here.
Well, I mean, it's not really. I can't really tell you much outside of what you've seen from or what you've heard because we haven't been down there. Or what you've heard from reports. The reason being is because there are situations where Haskins, had one of the film studies that I had. Or the film study that I had was one of his best games statistically, but in that game you still saw some big flaws that I thought was worth showing in a film session. So some of the things it was just more so hesitancy and not being able to see the field properly, even though he had big numbers in the game. There was some key mistakes that he made that could have hurt his team, but they were just overall Ohio State was overall a better team. With that being said, some things that I've heard in camp. Like today, Sunday, they said that this is I don't know if he outperformed any other quarterbacks, but they specifically said that this was Haskins' best day of camp to date.
Yeah.
And
Finley was was tweeting that a lot.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no, it's fine. So because I forgot who said it anyway. So yeah, so they were saying that this was his best camp practice to date. So it just goes to show you the long ways that he has. And we'll see more because we'll have 2 other people down there, one including myself. We'll have 2 other people down there to see firsthand what's going on, and then we'll have 4 preseason games where you'll see a lot more Haskins. So you just got to pay attention through the preseason and pay attention to where he's playing in practice, how many reps he's getting, and also what he's looking at when the live bullets fly. And that's just what's most important. We'll know a lot more as practice goes on.
I mean, to me, he's very clearly a smart guy. Both from a football perspective and just from a life perspective, he's not a stupid guy. He's obviously has the physical skills. There are some parts of the Ohio State offense that are similar to the Redskins. I think with Haskins, it's really more than anything. It's just getting used to the NFL, getting used to the speed of the game.
Yep.
His decision making needs to be quicker, I think. Than it was at Ohio State, and I think all of that's going to come in time. And I really don't want to see the team throw him to the wolves in the tough first quarter of the season. Because where do you go if he really struggles? Mm-hmm. What do you do there? Do you bench him? That's just a terrible idea.
Once he's in, you can't. Yeah. You can't take him out for at least, 20-something games once he's in.
I mean, not without, destroying his confidence and causing controversy and all that. So,
because once he's out, you're saying, all right, this was a bust.
Yeah, exactly. And so it seems to me you sort of have to go with either Colt or Keenum. And, I mean, between the 2 of them, I'd take Keenum,
Yeah.
So I think that's really your only choice. And if things really go south, they end up like 0-5 or something, and you get to the bye, and they're like 2-6 in the bye week 8 this year, week 9 this year.
Yeah, week 8, I think.
Yeah, week 8. Okay, and so then if you go into the second half of the season and we're out of it, and the schedule gets a little easier, that's another thing entirely. But I think if the team is competitive and they hang in there in the first half of the season with Case Keenum, you got to ride that out and just let Haskins start the year 2.
I think one of the most important things that comes into play is the confidence factor, and that can be impacted by the play of the offensive line. We don't know. Well, technically we do know. Like, they haven't looked good in training camp so far, and that's important. That's important to really notice because if you put a rookie back there who is already struggling to see the field, which is expected. He's a rookie. You're not going to get everything off rips initially, and that's just something that has to be worked on over time. But if you're struggling with that and you're not being able to have the perfect time, you start looking at the rush before you even look downfield. That'll impact the way you play.
Yep.
You'll do a lot more thinking than you're supposed to, really. When football is just it's instincts and mental, but at the same time, it goes hand in hand. You don't want to be thinking all the time when you play the sport to be an athlete and stuff like that. So, it's just that's just important as well. I think Keenum deserves to start right now. We'll see further, as preseason goes on, though.
Yeah. Do we think that Haskins is third string? Now?
No, I don't.
I do.
You do? Interesting.
Well, you saw him live, though, Alex. What do you think?
No, I don't think he's third string. All right, so let me kind of just say, when I got to the whole, second day, we'll fast forward and just say, training camp Sunday this morning, Haskins was probably the best player of the 3 quarterbacks that I saw today. He was on target. He was getting the ball out of his hands quickly, not doing what Colt loves to do, which is he just holds it and he runs around a little bit, even though he would have gotten sacked, and then he throws the ball a lot. That's kind of the Colt McCoy move. Right. Haskins is, dropping back and just firing. And most of his passes were right on target. He had a couple that were high, nothing really bad at any point. Haskins was probably the best arm today, and then I would say Keenum second and Colt was third. I'm right. I'm done with Colt if I'm really being. And I've been.
I mean, it's early though. I mean,
it's
early in training. He's coming off an injury. He hasn't worked out at all.
But I think the Redskins in general need to be ready to just say, all right, it's Keenum 1, Haskins 2, Colt. Thanks for the service. Because
the bigger question really is when does the Josh Woodrum era start?
Well, I mean. By the way, I don't think I ever actually saw him throw a single pass.
Yeah, and it's crazy because he's really not he's not going to be on the roster at all.
No.
It's kind of crazy for him. I was just thinking about it because somebody said something over Twitter, so I do have a thought about him. It's just crazy because he's going to get a lot of time in the fourth game because he's a camp body.
Right.
But at the same time, you're just like you don't even stand a chance, and he knows he doesn't stand a chance. So it's like I don't know. I don't know how to handle it.
Yeah.
Well, all he's trying to do is get some. He's trying to get some good play on film and hope to catch on, somewhere else. And obviously I'm kidding about the Josh Woodrum era. It would be an epic disaster if that ever happened.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're talking about a guy who was in the AAF for a hot minute, and I don't remember where he played before this. He's had some other NFL training camps, right? I mean, he's been around the league for a while.
I'm not sure, but he is like 28, isn't he?
Yeah. He's not young.
27, something like that.
He is not a young man.
I'm sure he's been in the league before. I'm not sure. I don't know his background. I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah, I don't think you need to.
I'm not writing an expose on Josh Woodrum. So
no, that's fine.
Yeah.
But so talking more about today.
Yeah.
Like I said, Haskins was the hot arm. A guy who also stood out for me quite a bit, Sprinkle. Everything he was getting thrown at, he was catching. And he was catching stuff over the middle and taking hard hits from defenders. He was, reaching on balls that were probably misthrown or a little off target. His ability to catch the ball really seems to be improving. And I noticed, especially with Haskins favoring our tight ends quite a bit because Sprinkle and who's the 6'8" kid? How do you pronounce his name, Steve?
Donald Parham.
Donald Parham. Parham's a Jewish thing. But, okay, so Donald Parham. And then Matt Flanagan also seemed to be, favorite targets for Haskins. And Flanagan, I know he's only 6'6", not 6'8", like Parham. He looks more the tight end part, whereas Parham looks more like a big receiver. So
yeah, I hate to backtrack here, but I really have to go over this because it just is fascinating. You guys ready for Josh Woodrum's NFL history?
Sure.
Ready for this?
Oh, God.
Okay, take a deep breath. New York Giants. He came into the league in 2016 as an undrafted free agent, and in that time he's been with, you ready? The Giants, the Colts, Bears, Bills, Ravens, Browns, Ravens again, something called the Salt Lake Sea Stallions.
That's the AAF.
Yeah, then the Redskins. So
and it wasn't Sea Stallions; it's just Stallions.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Stallions. Salt Lake.
Why would you have
Stallions.
Sea Stallions in?
I don't know.
In Utah.
I was thinking about seafood. So he's been with a total of 6 NFL teams
and the
7
AAF.
Trips before, and the AAF before he got to the Redskins.
Right. And the AAF, he was, probably the 7th best quarterback in their league of 8 teams.
He's been passed around and around and around.
Right. He's that guy.
But anyway, so Jeremy Sprinkle. I mean, we all knew he had talent.
Right.
Like Jamal said, 2 weeks ago on the show, I mean, he really just needs an opportunity. Mm-hmm. I think he knows that, with 2 big money guys ahead of him, that's not coming.
Yeah.
Right this year. So he's got to sort of hold, do his thing for another year and then hope one of those 2 guys leaves, Davis or Reed, and then maybe he'll get a shot.
Yeah. And I think what I saw, he might actually start getting some shots this year. Because remember, he gets on the field plenty. I mean, he's the blocking tight end. He's
pretty much the biggest tell ever when Jeremy Sprinkle's on the field.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
I saw him make 5 catches today. If he's getting better as a receiver, that tell is not as telling, and that's what we want.
Helps his stock a lot.
Well, you gotta hope Jay Gruden isn't calling the plays. Truth be told, because I think he's called in the last 2 years, and personnel reasons. That's one thing that will make the case that we had to use Jeremy Sprinkle as a run blocker. But at the same time, you got to trust your players a little bit more and be a little bit more versatile in how you use these guys. So
yeah,
Jamal, remember we talked about this when you and I did the show a couple weeks ago, and what we said at the time was if you compare his playing time to the number of targets he's had, it's just obvious that he's just a run thing only, and opposing defenses know this.
Yes.
And so the trick is you got to get him, even if he's not the primary target, you got to get him in on passing downs. Mm-hmm. You have to. And that's and that's the only way to make it better. Not to move on here, but let's move on. I really want to hear what you think about.
That's a great quote.
I really want to hear what you saw in Terry McLaurin because just from our view in the cheap seats,
right?
On the computer and on Twitter clips and stuff, he looks like he's just killing it.
Well,
what do you see in Terry McLaurin?
Those first 2 days, we saw those 2 or 3 big highlights on social media where he makes a cut or a break and he just would leave his corners in the dust. He didn't have anything that big today, but he still was getting some separation on almost every route I saw him run. Not the, hey, I did something and you're now 15 yards behind me. But, 2 or 3 yards in front of a guy, somewhere where Haskins or whoever's throwing the ball can just drop it right in front of him and he'll make the catch.
Which is beautiful because you were saying before the show that the defense seemed to have the upper hand on the offense for the most part from what you saw.
Yeah,
right?
the one thing, there were some good mismatches from these receivers. I think we might, I don't know if we have a great receiver still on this team, but I do think that we have guys with skill sets that you can use. And if you just basically take McLaurin and say, run a lot of, straight lines, because you'll beat a guy in a straight line.
Well, look,
we can use that.
Jamal and I have both done receiver drills
in
football practice, and here's what the thing is, because you always hear these things favor the offense. Because the 2 clips we saw, one of them was from OTAs, and he just dusted somebody wearing a number 24 that was not Josh Norman.
Right.
Just made him absolutely foolish, left him 10 yards in the dust.
Yeah.
And then another one was Troy Apke, who sucks and is terrible.
Yeah, I mean, Apke has good speed,
listen,
but that's
I'm sorry, he sucks. What can you say? He's no good, especially in pass coverage. And yes, for those smart Alex out there who pointed out that he would not be asked to do man coverage like that in a game.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, that has nothing to do with the fact
actually,
that
he's a safety. He would probably be the one who gets stuck with that.
No, he wouldn't. Not like
general safeties discussion. I hate to. I know you were making a point, Steve, and just to add to it, general safeties they're asked to cover slot receivers and tight ends. This is not an unfamiliar place for a safety to be. Just because he's possibly going to play the free safety position for us, it doesn't matter. They're still going to have man-to-man assignments throughout the course of a year, and you're still, and even if it's not on this team, you'll still have that primarily throughout the league. Safeties will have man-to-man assignments, and I hate the fact that when you point something out that somebody got burnt badly, or that you even make an instance of one single rep, you have 1,000 people saying this is not the case. This is not going to happen.
And you saw all that. You saw all that garbage I was getting on Twitter, Jamal.
Yes, and I got it too, and it was pissing me off because it's I wasn't even trying to argue with people. I simply talked about one rep.
That's all I was. That's all my point was. It's the man
talking about one rep.
The man looked terrible in that one rep. He looked awful. Mm-hmm. And just newsflash for those of you who've never played football at any kind of level, the DBs and the wide receivers practice together. You don't distinguish between corners and safeties when you're doing these kind of one-on-one drills. Everybody practices it because everybody knows how to do it.
Defensive back.
Yeah, exactly. And so my point here is that the reason why it's sort of pro offense is that the quarterback is not under any pressure at all.
No, not in those 7-on-7 drills. Yeah,
you're just one-on-one. Even I'm talking about the quarterback receiver drills like that.
Yeah.
I mean, you're one-on-one. The quarterback has all day long. It does kind of favor the offense, but the point here is that Terry McLaurin has made multiple people look foolish. And he beat Josh Norman, legitimately beat Josh Norman on a double move, and got separation on him on what would have been a long gain.
Now we also should mention that Josh Norman is kind of famous for not being good against speed guys.
Hey, look, he's our number one.
He is, but what is his Achilles heel? It's a guy like McLaurin. It
is.
That's how you take advantage of him. I did post, there's so many rules about what you can and cannot tape as a reporter on the sideline. So I couldn't.
What about us, a fake reporter?
Yeah, well, they're just more likely to kick me out, right? So I didn't post anything from when they were doing 11-on-11 or 7-on-7s because those are the stuff you're not allowed to show. You're really only allowed to show the whole, quarterback, receiver.
The
drills, with the corners.
The only thing that's annoying about that is the fact that they ask us to stop recording, but you got people in the stands.
So
their phones out.
I hate it.
You can't tell them
go look at other fans. They'll show you. That's how you can find the 11-on-11s. But I did post a great one of Jimmy Moreland, who, as you guys know, has been lighting it up all camp. He had a great pass breakup that I got a pretty good video of that's on our Twitter that people should go check out. It was just he probably could have gotten the interception, but the receiver pulled him back just at the last second, so he couldn't get his hands on it.
You know what Jimmy Moreland is? Jimmy Moreland is a poor man's D'Angelo Hall.
He is. He's just
exactly
a very natural ball hawk.
Yeah, well, he's better in zone coverage because he just has a natural nose to the ball, and he sort of knows just inherently when and how to make a break on the ball.
Right.
And that's what people were seeing in camp because that's what I saw on film of
Yes.
him in college, and that's what he's good at. I don't know if he's quite as good at just a straight up man on man, press man coverage. He may not be. But the kind of things we were seeing on film was what he's known for, and so let's hope that he can do it in a when the live.
I think he needs to put a little more meat on his bones. Just when you see him in person, he's not a big dude. I mean, I'm not big, but I felt like when I was standing there and I looked at him, I looked at myself, and I'm like,
Let's not pretend you're skinny, Alex.
No, I'm not skinny at all, but. I've only got maybe an inch on him, and I'm just like, this guy's a beanpole compared to, what you want a corner to look like. Yes, I'm 210 with a lot of fat. He could get to 210 and be all muscle, and it'd be much better. That would be my point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now running backs.
Running backs. They're using a lot of Samaje Perine for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know why. Don't ask me why. I don't know why.
Was Darius Geis practicing?
Geis was practicing. Peterson was practicing. Peterson.
Did Adrian Peterson have loan sharks chasing him on the field?
No loan sharks chasing Adrian Peterson on the field. No, but
a guy with a summons, perhaps trying to track him down.
Right. None of that. There was one guy they were using a lot who I didn't recognize I'm actually going to use the cheat sheet of player numbers. I believe it was Craig Reynolds, 22. Yes. He was getting a lot of use in goal line situations at practice today, which was interesting.
Okay, so Craig Reynolds.
Yeah.
He is we just signed him, which is why you don't know who he is.
Right.
He was
5'11", 225 rookie.
He's from Kutztown University. That's why nobody's ever heard of him.
Right.
He was the star of Kutztown University, undrafted free agent this year. He's a guy who's got a lot of promise. He's at 5'11", 215. He's kind of the classic, running back size. He has some speed in him.
Yep.
So he's a guy who's going to have to hope to catch on the practice squad.
All right. So let's do a little pop quiz for everyone else. Where's Kutztown roughly? What state?
Who are you asking me?
Anybody.
Well, I looked it up when I studied Craig Reynolds. So
yeah,
Kutztown.
Yeah, I do know where. I know at least
that sounds like either down south or it sounds like northeast.
Well, that's half the country, Jamal.
No, I said either down south or northeast.
Right,
so
right.
Like
so
so you're basically saying anything west of the Mississippi and south of the state of Tennessee.
Yeah.
Look, it's Pennsylvania, people.
Yes. Yeah.
That's exactly what I was. That's literally. I swear. That's what I was. I was like, it has to be up. It has to be up north, or it's either down south.
It's one of those names that sounds Amish to me. So.
Jamal, I think you have like a future as like a palm reader. Because you can just fish out. I think your college is either in the south or possibly the north.
Right. We could get you one of those hats. Like who was that one on TV? Miss Cleo. Is that a dated reference at this point? A little bit.
Little bit. We know who Miss Cleo is, but you know what I'm saying. It was a lucky guess. That's all.
Okay.
And I still technically was wrong because I gave 2 options.
Okay, but Craig Reynolds.
It doesn't surprise me at all that we're seeing Reynolds and Perine, by the way. Is anyone really surprised by that? You don't need to see anything out of Peterson, and Geis has had injury.
Right. Well,
that's really what I wanted to know is what did Geis do? I don't care about. I care about Craig Reynolds, but I care more about
Geis and Peterson. They both get 2 or 3 carries. But they're going to be in the non-tackle drills for the most part. Is
he healthy? Was he running fully? How healthy did he look?
They looked pretty good. Peterson looked great. I'll say that. Peterson off the bat looks like he's going to start off very strong this season. I don't know how he'll hold up, but he was making some really sharp cuts. stuff that got the crowd excited pretty quickly. Same with Geis really only had one play that I think anyone really made a big deal about at any point. That the fans reacting. I mean, other than that, it's evaluating running backs in training camp is always my weakest thing because they can't get tackled for the most part.
But could you see how well he was cutting? That's really wanted to know about.
I saw a lot of outside stuff being run most of the day. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of cutting.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, look, not to go back to tight ends, but did you see anything out of Reed? I'm seeing a ton of articles about Reed specifically and how good he looks, and we kind of glossed over that. We talked about Sprinkle. But
I'm trying to think if I even noticed Reed doing much, and I really didn't.
From what I understand, he had an off day, either Saturday or Sunday.
He might have been off today because I saw him on the sideline, doing a lot of one-on-one, just catching kind of stuff. Same with Davis, for that matter. So maybe that's why Sprinkle was getting so much work.
Jordan Reed in training camp is sort of like, when you go out to mow your lawn,
right?
And it's 100 degrees. And so when you get out there, you're hydrated, you're rested, you look good. And by the time you're done, an hour later, you look like a complete wreck and you're going to die. That's Jordan Reed.
Well said.
That's what Jordan Reed is in training camp compared to week 8.
Right.
It sounds great. I don't mean to be rude to the man, but it sounds great right now. Yeah, okay, he looks good. He's cutting well. He's moving well. Well, we all know what's going to happen, and it's just a matter of when, not if. So I just have no faith that he's going to be able to do that for even 14 weeks of the season. I just think they really have to do something to develop these tight ends.
I kind of agree. Obviously, those 3 young guys who are in camp right now, Sprinkle, Flanagan, and Parham, or whatever we're calling him.
Parham. He's not Jewish. He could be Jewish, but his name is Parham.
No, he's definitely not Jewish, I don't think.
He might be Jewish. How do you know? You're making a stereotypical assumption.
I'm making a stereotypical assumption that there aren't a lot of 6'8" Jews out there. So
He could be.
Athleticism is not our strength.
Alex is allowed to say that.
I'm allowed to say that. We had great pitchers back in the 20s. That was about it.
I know. Sandy Koufax must be your hero.
Yeah. Well, not mine. My grandfather's. But
the greatest Jewish left-handed pitcher ever.
Yeah. Well, literally, that's all my grandfather ever talked about. Yeah.
He might be the greatest pitcher ever. Period. Actually.
Cy Young, Sandy Koufax. There are a couple names.
Donald Parham.
Yes. So those 3 were getting a lot of work. I actually like what I see in them. I don't know. Here's the thing. With Reed's health and with Vernon being about, 50 years old at this point, there's no guarantee either of them is going to be healthy through the season. So I think you need to make sure one of these guys is ready to take a bulk of the load.
I think it's a guarantee that both of them aren't going to be healthy this season.
Yeah, well, it's almost.
Okay, so I wrote an expose over this weekend on Donald Parham because I was Twitter shamed into it, primarily.
People, you can Twitter shame Steve. Remember that.
No, I'm just kidding. I have no shame whatsoever. But he caught my eye when we did tight ends a couple weeks ago on the position group breakdowns. And by the way, this counts as our quarterback position group breakdown. In case anybody was wondering, because we left quarterbacks to the end. Well, this is it.
Is it?
Case. Yeah, this is our quarterback.
Okay, I asked a question about quarterbacks to Jay Gruden. People can listen to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Okay.
So Donald Parham, though, I got fascinated by this guy when we studied him a couple weeks ago. So I put an innocent little thing out on Twitter that said, he's a sleeper. Watch for him, and that got a ton of attention. It got everybody out at Stetson University, retweeted it and everything. And a couple of people, one guy, Dave, the guy Dave, who always writes in. Dave said, you want to write a big long thing on Donald.
Oh, so
Parham.
Dave is the one who pressured you.
Dave pressured me into it, so I did write a long thing on Parham. Listen, this dude, he's very raw.
Yeah.
He doesn't have great route running skills at all. He needs a lot of help in that. He's going to take a lot of adjusting because the Stetson offense is like a high school offense in some respects. But he's got unbelievable physical skills.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really teach 6'8".
He's not really a tight end.
No,
he's really more. He's not going to line up an inline tight end. He looks like an NBA small forward in body type. He's not going to line up inline. He's not really an H-back. What he is a humongous slot receiver, basically. But he's got the biggest catch. He's got to have one of the biggest catch radiuses in the NFL.
His
arms are 36-inch arms. He's got a 39-inch vertical leap, and he's 6'8". This is Jay Gruden's wet dream of an end zone target.
Mm-hmm.
Think about the fade pattern to a guy who's 6'8" and can jump 3.5 feet in the air with 36-inch arms. He's fast.
Yeah.
He's got good hands, solid hands. He doesn't drop balls.
Nope.
He's got some breakaway speed to him. Granted, at Stetson is not the same as the NFL, but he has some speed. I think this guy could be a sleeper. He's not going to start right away.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to make the roster, right away, probably. I think he's a developmental prospect that has the ability to be good in time.
I saw him make one really nice over-the-middle crossing route in one of the 11-on-11s.
He can do those.
Yeah.
He's not afraid to do those
right.
routes.
But I think you actually brought up one interesting point, and that is that his body type really isn't that of a tight end. He looks like a receiver more than a tight end. Just he's very lengthy and long, and like you said, he looks more like an NBA player. Just based off.
Stetson had him do some limited amount of run blocking, but in the NFL, you would not want him to do that. It's one thing to do it at Stetson when you're playing, Davidson.
I still think you got Sprinkle and Flanagan for that more traditional tight end type work. And I liked what I saw out of all three of those guys. Like I said, Flanagan seemed to be a favorite target for Haskins, and that might just be because he's working with the twos a lot, so he's probably getting comfortable with them. But I noticed that as well.
Hey, J.P. Holtz is the other one.
Yeah.
You haven't mentioned Holtz. J.P. Holtz is the receiver of this group of young tight ends. It's Holtz is the guy who's the most like Jordan Reed. He's like the poor man's Jordan Reed in terms of what he does, how he plays.
Yeah.
So he's and he's the one he's been here a while.
Yeah,
or at least a year. So.
Yeah, has he been here a year? I didn't even realize.
He was here last year. He was on a practice squad. He's going to get a shot too. You haven't mentioned him.
Because I know the name, but I just didn't see him do much.
Keep up with it.
And one of the things about this whole, training camp is there's just so many guys right now at receiver and tight end who are all vying for spots because it's a wide open competition really to see who can be the targets. And, the guys who are liked by Haskins versus the guys who are liked by Keenum, no one will say, "Oh, I'm a Haskins guy" or anything like that. When I talk to Cam Sims, and that's another interview that's on our website, and I don't know if we'll play it in the show, but when I talk to him about it, he's like, "Well, you can't really have a favorite. You just got to work with all these guys because you don't know who's going to start." But you can kind of tell when you watch camp that, Haskins seems to be targeting these guys a lot. Keenum seems to be targeting these guys a lot more. And I think it's just a virtue of, Keenum's playing with the ones and Quinn's with the ones, so Quinn's getting a lot of balls from Keenum. Makes sense. It's some of that, but, that's also worth watching for when you are at camp and you're looking at these things.
Yeah, I'm getting a ton of tweets and articles about Quinn and specifically what Jay Gruden said about him having the slot.
Oh yeah, there's no question. And I think it's also there's really just no one who can compete for that spot right now. We don't have another.
What I think happened is that Ryan Grant passed his naked pictures of Jay on to Trey. That's what I think happened.
Jesus.
Yeah, Steve, control yourself.
Steve's gotten goofy. He made a wet dream reference earlier that no one called out.
It's Hog Sty late night.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sue me.
I was going to say, every time Steve says something about wet dreams, you have to take a drink. That's the Hog Sty.
Okay, that's the first time I've ever said that in the history of the show.
So you have to take one drink.
I've been drinking my water this entire hour.
Oh, that's good.
Everybody, if you're listening, ship Steve a little airplane bottle of liquor so he can take a shot.
I don't drink alcohol though, so it wouldn't go well.
Nope, he'll take one.
So I'm trying to think what other things I observed because
okay, let's move on. Here's what I want to hear from you.
All right.
Offensive line. So Trent Williams is on his couch,
right,
in Houston, most likely, waiting out a holdout, and we could talk about why. I guess
right. And apparently, and you were telling me about this. Apparently, Morgan Moses later in the camp after I had left came out in Trent Williams' jersey.
Well, he did his comments
right
for his interview on Sunday, which is the day we're recording this, in a Trent Williams jersey and pretended to be Trent.
Right.
As a matter of fact.
Which. There's a whole level of weird in this at that point.
It's got like a Clinton Portis kind of vibe.
That does have a Clinton Portis vibe.
But so Trent's not there. Trent's punked out on his team. He's quit on his teammates, and so let's figure out exactly what's going on at left tackle. So what did you see at left tackle?
All right. So like I said, in walkthroughs, I saw a lot of Christian and Robinson. They're rotating out quite a bit when you watch 11 on 11s, but I would say Robinson was there quite a bit.
Corey Robinson, which is the new tackle they signed.
I don't think, and I didn't even write it down or make a mental note of it. I don't think Christian's doing 11 on 11 type work yet. I think he's just doing walkthroughs, because he's still trying to get healthy. So I don't know. I don't think I saw him there. Some Eric Flowers. I'm not as good at O-line breakdowns as some of our previous people who've been on the show and some people who actually play O-line out there. So I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on that. I will say in 11 on 11s
hasn't looked good though. It sounds like for the most part in terms of the offensive.
Just remember, one of these guys has got to face DeMarcus Lawrence in like 6 weeks.
Yeah, and it's not going to go well.
No.
It's so
we just entirely skipped the Philly game.
I mean, what you're going to have?
Yeah, we got Philly coming up.
You really are going to have to just put Sprinkle in a lot to just be a second blocker on that side.
That's what you do when you have a problem at
right.
tackle.
Right.
Exactly
it's like 1980s, football coach mentality. We don't have a tackle. We need to just have an extra blocker in there. And that means only 4 receivers at most, or 3 receivers, whatever.
They really have a problem on the left side of the line.
They do. It's going to be terrible.
You can't understate this.
No.
When you lose a 7-time Pro Bowler because he's too weak-minded to support his teammates and wants to hold out for money. Listen,
I
mean,
just
it's
want
all
everybody to know I disagree with Steve.
Oh, that's fine. I think it's all about money and Trent's being a punk, and that's just my opinion of it.
Well, let's talk about it. This is a good time to go into this topic.
I'm just not buying
So
it, is Sean. That's the key for me. I'm not buying it.
You're not buying
the medical thing. It's garbage. I think it's garbage. Okay. I'm not buying it at all. I think this is really just about him wanting to tack on a year or two to his contract. I mean, okay, he had a growth on his head. I mean, you know what? He got it fixed. Man up. Sack up.
I mean, look. I also,
man, hold on. That's a life and death situation. You
got
to respect where you're coming from if that was an issue. So
listen,
you and I can disagree. The people involved.
You and I can disagree. That's fine. That's cool with me. I'm just not buying it. And I think he's a team captain. He's the best player on the team. He's the most respected player on the team, and you're just going to walk out on your teammates? I just think at the end of the day he wants money. I might be totally wrong. Maybe Jamal's right, and I'm wrong, and I'm a jerk, and that's fine. But I'm just not buying any of it. I just think he wants more money, and I think
even if he wants, I don't begrudge a man wanting more money at the same time. So if he wants more money, and if he's willing to I think he's approaching it wrong. If you want to get that extra 2 or 3 years, you approach the team in good faith about that first. You don't play this game that you're playing. Now, he might have and just been ignored, but there's always a way to extend the contract that works for both sides, and there's always a way to do some of this. And I just that's where I approach it from more. I'm like,
Jamal,
why didn't you guys just work it out? 2 months ago, right?
Months ago. Like, Jamal, you disagree with me then, it sounds like. So what's your opinion on this situation?
Oh, my bad. I thought I heard something at my door.
It was probably the fly.
It's the fly.
Nah, that fly is out of sight right now, and that's
he's at your door. That's why you can't see him.
Maybe. So, for me, when it comes to Trent, I just personally feel like it's not. It's personal to a degree, but we just don't know the truth. There's been rumors for a few months now that it's medical and it's related to the actual front office. And then there's some things that's dealing with his contract, but we just don't know the truth. And on top of that, the local media don't even really know. The only thing that they're getting is from the Redskins PR denying reports that's out there. They don't really know the truth. They have hunches themselves. So if you ask me what is my personal opinion, I think that his situation is personal, but nobody knows the truth. But you have to take into account everything that's going on. Is Trent, if it's financial, is Trent dishonoring his contract at this point by holding out? Sure. However, if it's medical, because that's going to be the other end of the spectrum, he has every right to feel disrespected and feel some type of way because his life could have been threatened in some type of way. Yes, there was a growth on his head. Yes, it was benign according to reports. However, what if it wasn't? Because he was misdiagnosed clearly and it went undetected for a while. So what if it was more serious than what it was? You have some type of way to feel. He's been around this team for a long time, and the medical staffs, it's been multiple medical staffs in place, but the same outcome always occurs here in Washington. He's been around to see a lot of it, and that's a problem within itself. So there's multiple factors to take into account with Trent Williams, but we just don't know. And I don't think it's fair for anybody to say this is the absolute when it comes to Trent Williams because he hasn't even spoke yet. So when I disagreed with you, Steve, it's not because you were right or wrong, but it's more so we don't know. And that's not fair to put on Trent and call him a punk or call him such and such because we don't know what the truth is. And you got to respect the fact that if it was personal, he has the right to feel a type of way. The same. I'm done. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I respect your opinion. You and I disagree, and that's fine. We can disagree with it. At the end of the day, I think he has a responsibility to his team. Whatever happened with this medical stuff, number one, if you have a growth in your head, you should be going to a dermatologist or an oncologist, not the athletic trainers, number one. But beyond that, because you're right, we don't know what happened here. But I think at the end of the day, whatever happened, and now the team needs you, and you need to be there and get over it. That's my feeling on it. But I'm not, like I said, I don't really buy it anyway. I just think it's all about money at the end of it. I might be wrong. We'll see.
Did you guys discuss the Mason Foster cut on the last episode? I can't remember when it happened.
I'm sure we did. I think we did.
Yeah, no, that was last week.
But go ahead, Sean.
Saw
if you have an opinion, go ahead.
Well, just saw a lot of speculation that was a free-up money decision. A lot of people had a hard time kind of making sense of why that cut was made. But if it was to sort of sweeten the deal for Trent in some way, that would be one. That's one piece of evidence, I guess.
They didn't really need to cut his salary to pay Trent, though.
No.
I mean, they had like over $7 million in cap space, so they could have done it without cutting.
Well,
I think with Mason Foster,
why else would they cut him?
If they were doing it for Trent and Sheriff, then maybe.
Yeah, but Sheriff's already has his cap space for this year. He's already at $12.5 million. I think Mason. Really. I mean, his agent clearly felt disrespected by it. But my first thought that went through my head is they're just trying to give him a chance to catch on with another team by cutting him, before training camp and not right before the season starts. If they knew, they knew. What I didn't buy at all was that they cut him because, the rumor was that some website nobody's ever heard of put out that this had to do with a lawsuit, that a fan sued Mason over those Twitter comments from last year. I think that's just a bunch of, nonsense.
Yeah,
that's total nonsense. Yeah, I don't buy that at all. I just think it was a football decision made at kind of a curious time,
I mean, you want to get cut sooner rather than later in any offseason. That's
for an established vet like me.
Yeah, and I understand it's late in the season, so that's why he wasn't happy. But
right.
This is a merciless business. We do know that, and that's why. Why I don't get too bent out of shape about Trent being like, "Well, I want more time and more money."
I mean, it's not the end of the world. If Trent shows up right before the season starts,
we'll be fine.
We'll be fine. Trent will be Trent.
Right.
It's really disappointing. I mean, it's like the words that people are using, and of course, like Jamal said, nobody knows the actual circumstances of this or the details, but the reports are that it's just totally fractured with Trent, between Trent and Bruce, between Trent and everybody else in the administration. Not
well. I mean, we could get it back to it, but the whole can you really trust Bruce Allen to amend a broken bridge? No.
Yeah, of course not.
The one thing's for sure is that Jay Gruden's tired of talking about.
Oh,
Trent.
He definitely is. That's why I didn't ask him about Trent. I'm not stupid.
Jay Gruden's always tired of talking about the biggest story that needs to be talked about. He's always
actually.
If Alex
today
if you had asked about Trent, he would never have been able to ask another question again.
Right? No. He just looked tired in general at the Sunday presser today.
We had a big deal at the press conference today. The Hog Sty got its first Jay Gruden question in.
Yeah. I snatched away a microphone. Well, I asked for it politely from one of the guys who doesn't.
I'm catching up on things. What'd you ask him?
Well, I just asked him how he was dividing his time between Haskins and Keenum and Colt, and like how does he kind of balance that out? And he kind of gave a pretty broad answer about it. They wrote it up though in their press Q&A thing. So
here's the answer. Here's what he said.
People can listen to this, by the way. It's on our website.
Yeah, I would go through. He wrote all of them. We talked to one. We talked to them all. We have to speak the same language to all of them. Very, very important. So Tim Rattay speaking the same language as Coach Galvin.
I forgot Tim Rattay's our coach.
O'Connell. Yeah, and myself. So when they're talking to Tim Rattay in the quarterback room, it's an extension of what I want. So as a quarterback position, they all have to hear the same thing. They're all coached the same. Nobody's coached any different. Now, we may have a group of plays that might be specific for one quarterback, but for the most part, when we're installing our offense, everybody is spoke to in the same way. That was Jay's answer to Alex's question.
Right.
Illuminating, Jay. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he, like I said, he was tired today. He looked tired.
He's like, who is this guy? More importantly, who'd you snatch the microphone from?
I don't even know. There were a lot of Richmond reporters and people I didn't recognize today.
Give me that microphone, John Keim.
No, I couldn't. John Keim doesn't even look back towards where I'm sitting. He's up front. The big muckety mucks are all up front. I'm sitting in the back.
We haven't talked about the defense, though. Defensive line observations, Alex?
Defensive line, obviously looking good. I love watching Jim Tomasula coach. First off, the dude wears like a all black windbreaker in 90-degree heat. It's the weirdest thing ever.
Jim Tomasula is like a caricature of a football coach.
Yeah,
you find in like a comedy movie.
Him and Rob Ryan both could be in a comedy movie.
In an Adam Sandler movie.
Yeah. And because they're literally between every play yelling at somebody, "Hey, Alan, John, do this," and he just makes some hand wave gesture, and Alan knows what it is.
Rob Ryan still look like he's pregnant?
Well, I look like I'm pregnant, so I'm not going to judge him.
Not like that.
After all the barbecue I ate, I look like Rob Ryan.
So, but in all seriousness, defensive line, what'd you see?
They were owning in the 11-on-11 drills. Because they can't tackle the quarterback, you'll see a lot of quarterbacks get a pass off, and it's like, all right, you clearly would have been sacked twice by now. And you see a lot of that all the time when you really start trying to watch the O-line. Ioannidis is dominating. Allen's dominating. Payne is, when it comes to run stuffing, Payne is getting in the backfield pretty regularly. He is one of those guys that will maybe not make a tackle, but he just throws his body in there and completely breaks up whatever the plan was for the offense. So you'll see him on the ground, but he's taking out the entire offensive line, that kind of thing.
One thing I noticed is that Tim Settle came in a svelte about 310, or much. I don't know if it was 310. I might be wrong. Don't quote me on that.
Well,
but he came in at a lower.
He doesn't
weight
look
than
it.
He was last year.
Still looks like a giant.
Well, he is a giant compared to normal people.
Right. So, if he cut down on weight, it's not – I don't think it's going to make much of a difference. He's still a nose tackle, yeah. And you hear that about a bunch of players that, this player's cut down on weight. This player's cut down. I'm like, okay. They're all still NFL players. They're huge. They're monsters. The one guy I didn't see practicing a lot, maybe I was just not looking for him, was Sweat. I saw him out there, but I didn't notice him on the field a lot today.
Jay has raved about Montez Sweat.
Everyone's raved about Sweat when he's practicing. I just didn't notice him today.
It's kind of funny because I did a study on Sweat, and I didn't see it on film in some cases, his burst that you see on film now in these practice clips, because I just don't think that he was really being used in sort of a dedicated speed edge rusher role as much.
No, Mississippi used him everywhere.
Yeah, they used him everywhere, and I think if you focus him on speed rushes from the edge in the NFL, you may see a different and more effective Montez Sweat than we saw it at Mississippi State. Because I did ask a couple people when I did that study about it. I called a couple people and said, am I missing something here? And they said, no, you're not missing anything. That's just kind of the way he was used. And so if the Redskins can kind of figure him out, he could be
Steve apparently has
monster.
an in at Mississippi State where he just...
No. That's not what I mean.
Yeah, I know.
But the point is, if they can really kind of figure out how to best use him, he could be a beast.
Yeah, and I think they will. I mean, I think he's another great piece to this defensive puzzle. By the way, you can really tell John Bostic why they kind of felt okay letting Mason Foster go. That dude he gets in the position every play. He's
nice.
I don't think he's like got elite speed or anything like that, but he knows where things are going. He's ready for every run. He finds the right hole.
Listen, league average speed leaves Mason Foster in the dust.
Well, yeah, Mason, especially after the last couple of years, he went from maybe average to whoa. And we see that. I mean, that's what happened with the linebackers. We saw it with London Fletcher too. Granted, London was like 40, but we saw it.
Yeah.
DBs, watching a lot of them in the one-on-ones. Moreland, like I said earlier, stood out. I didn't see a lot from Norman today. I saw Collins make one or two good pass breakup type plays, which was usually on tight ends or some kind of bigger receiver. They had him. Yeah, I mean, Collins, you can kind of tell he's going to be a good physical presence out there. That's for sure. Dunbar was out there kind of keeping pace with everybody. But, yeah, I mean, nothing exceptional. Like you kind of said earlier, the, passing practices are kind of meant to favor the receivers. But the corners were pretty effective. I remember there was one series where they're kind of doing just red zone drill type stuff, and Keenum was like 2 for 5. Colt McCoy was like 3 for 5. So, if you're seeing that kind of thing from the corners in those practices, I think that's a pretty good sign for them.
There's only one way to know if you were truly doing your job and paying attention.
Uh-oh. No.
The big long snapper competition between Andrew East and Nick Sundberg. You must have a report on this.
I don't have a report on them because I don't think East actually did much of anything. I mean, in terms of special teams, it was funny. Tressway went and was doing kickoffs and jawing with fans on the sideline because fans are like, "What are you doing on kick return or kickoff duty?" He's like, "I just want to hit somebody."
Didn't he talk about that kind of thing when we interviewed him?
Yeah.
Talk about wanting to hit people?
Yeah, he likes he's a goofball. Yeah. And he's the best puncher in the NFL, so he can do what he wants.
So you don't have an Andrew East
report? No
Andrew
East reports. What would your long snapper report be? Well, he snapped the ball.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
Was long. He snapped very long.
Yep.
Yeah.
Two things.
Just realized, by the way, totally random and not important to football, but I just realized he's the husband of the famous gymnast, Shawn Johnson.
Yeah.
Right.
I did not realize that East was married to her. I had no idea.
He's like a big social media guy because she is.
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
I can't remember what her name is, but
Shawn Johnson.
yeah.
Not East Johnson?
Yeah, no.
Or would it be Johnson East since she's probably more famous? I don't know. I don't know how you do hyphenates.
Yeah, actually, I don't know. I don't know how they work that out. We'll have to get him on the show and ask him.
Well, we only have so many weeks until he's probably not on the team.
Yeah, we need to do it fast if we're going to get him on
We're
the show.
not keeping a backup long snapper.
Hey, I was kidding about it, obviously, but in all seriousness, think about this for a minute. Nick Sundberg has a cap hit of $1.08 million.
Right.
Andrew East has a cap hit of $570,000. And he's younger. So, if not to waste too much time on the long snapper battle, but I think if Andrew East can prove that he's competent, they may just roll the dice and do it just to save $500,000.
They
It's
might,
not
but
beyond
Nick
the realm
Sundberg's
of
also
possible.
beloved, and he's a good PR
He's been
guy.
with this team since, McNabb, hasn't he? He's been with
Forever.
this team since
He's
McNabb
him
was
and
quarterback.
him and Trent are the
Well,
veterans,
and remember
senior veterans.
the snapper we had before Sundberg was the red snapper. I can't remember his real name.
Big red snapper. It was Ethan Albright.
Ethan Albright, and he was here for 30 years as the snapper. Once you find a good one,
1-year contracts.
Yeah. Once
He
you
was.
Jeez, we do that.
Every year he signed. I'm such a nerd about this.
Yeah.
Every year he signed a new 1 year. They mailed him a contract every year.
right, he never even had a lawyer.
Ethan
He
Albright.
just signed
No.
the league minimum every year.
Yep.
And he played till he was in his 40s.
And he had he was the owner of the lowest Madden rating in the game.
Right. Right. And now our fourth quarterback, I think, is the lowest rated quarterback in the game this year.
Oh, really?
Logan.
Didn't you guys play Madden? Jamal, do you play? You're a gamer. You and Sean both. Do you play Madden? Do you guys?
In a couple years.
I haven't since like January. I haven't played the video game.
Do these? Well, the reason why I ask is, do these ratings that everybody's going gaga over matter in any way? I mean,
they get updated every week when the season starts, so it doesn't even matter. So if the person that they're complaining about,
right,
if they're good, it'll increase, and if the player is overrated, it'll decrease.
Right. By the year's end, it's a totally different game.
So it's just something to argue about
Yep.
because they don't have enough to do. That's what I thought.
Basically.
Yeah. It's fun to watch the players react to their ratings. That's always a good YouTube watch, though, if you're curious. Do we have anything else to say about training camp, or should we talk really briefly about Donald?
Let's get to that because we're at an hour, so we should do that.
Okay. Well, not much to really talk about. There was a potential for him to come on with the team. Sounds like he left without a deal, so probably not.
Okay, so a bit of insider info on Donald Penn. What I was told was that they liked him, but he wanted too much money. They didn't want to pay him, which is why they ended up with Corey Robinson.
Right.
That's what I was told.
Right. So they're basically still banking on Trent eventually making it in.
Well, for those of you who aren't aware of Corey Robinson, he's not an undrafted free agent. Corey Robinson was a 2015 seventh-round pick of the Lions.
Right.
And he was there for 3 years, started 8 games for the Lions, played in 14 games there in 2016. So he's a vet.
He's got some playing time. Not great.
He got traded to Carolina last year for a draft pick, and then Carolina cut him. He got traded to Jacksonville from Carolina, and then Jacksonville cut him. So he's been around. He's not this like babe in the woods. He's a vet, and so I think the theory is, if he's like a break glass in case of emergency type of guy.
Right. Mm-hmm. I think it's
and
that.
Donald Penn, obviously, Donald Penn is an established quality player. Just he's 100 years old. That's his problem.
Right.
He's like 36.
I don't know what numbers he was asking for,
season,
but it probably would have been pricey.
I didn't tell me that.
Yeah.
I just heard that he was out of their price range.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Well, if we don't have anything else, we can cut it off here. Like Alex said, we're just about at the end of our time. You guys have anything else you want to throw out there?
We'll be at Jamal. When are you headed to camp?
The first Thursday.
All right.
Okay. And we've got Jay Evans is going. He'll be there too. And then we've got a photographer.
James Scott.
Thank you. Yeah, James Scott's going to be there too. So we will be covered up in camp for at least the first half of camp.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great.
Yep.
Beautiful. Lots of new content.
Someday
coming.
you two will
Like
go.
Steve
Someday.
Yeah. One day. We have the farthest commute. Do you think your commute was bad?
You might take him out about the same amount of time to drive.
Yeah, you're right.
It's
Good
just
point.
the expenses of going to camp get exponentially greater when you live in another part of the country.
Right.
Yeah. Well, like Steve said, alluded to at the beginning of the show, we do have some exciting announcements coming up, but we will hold off on that probably until next week. So,
Let's let the ink dry.
Yeah, exactly. Let the ink dry first. But we've got, like Steve said, Jamal going to training camps. We've got tons more content coming from training camp for you guys as we head to the beginning of the preseason and then the year. So stick with us. We've got lots more coming. We will see you all next time right here on the Hog Sty. Take care.